Last winter, my wife and I traveled all around North America in search of the best places to ride. We rode a lot of interesting places and got to test out a ton of cool features. But one of the coolest features was at Highland Mountain Bike Park in New Hampshire. There's a trail there called Any Style that's absolutely jam-packed with them. But the one feature that really stuck out to me was this wall ride. I hadn't seen one quite like this before. Basically, you have to step up onto a nearly level bridge. When you ride through and the bridge turns right, it transitions into a wall ride. By the time you fly off the end, the wall ride is at about 45 degrees. Meanwhile, back at my trail, Stone Starlet, I've got this big open space called the Badlands, a logging clear cut. I wondered what the heck I could put out here that would make this otherwise uninspiring area interesting. How about a wall ride similar to the one we saw at Highland? It's not exactly a backyard trail build, but hey, why not? So with that goal in mind, I got to work. So first things first, I needed to find a good spot for the feature. According to Google Earth, the wall ride at Highland is about 28 feet wide from entrance to exit, and not including the lip and landing. So armed with this information and a tape measure, Yuka and I went out to the Badlands to scout out a good spot. Not only did we need a location that was big enough, we also needed something that would provide a good downhill run in, and also a downhill run out to provide a smooth transition to land on. And after a bit of hiking around, we found what seemed like a great spot, right next to this slash pile. It has a downhill run in, a downhill exit. The only problem is that the space is a little small. Instead of the almost 180 degree turn that the Highland wall ride provided, this one would have just over 90 degrees. So after flagging the very general location of the feature, I came back the next day to cut a very general run in and run out. You might have noticed that things in the Badlands have gotten a lot greener, and they have. Just 2 months ago, the Badlands looked truly dead. But now it has come to life, making the work of cutting trail through here even more difficult. But now that I had the entrance and exit roughed in, I needed to get an aerial view of the situation. So using my drone, I could do exactly this. Using this image, I could design my wall ride to fit exactly where my run-in finishes and where my run-out starts. So using some skills from a past life, I whipped up a design in 3D to fit the space I had chosen in the real world. The wall ride would be about 22 feet wide and long. The decking would be about 6 feet wide and the entrance would be about 3 feet off the ground. The center of the exit would also be 3 feet off the ground, but in real life the ground slopes away and it should be more like 5 feet. I used the same approximate radius as the wall ride at Highland as well, which is about 15 feet. And finally, the wall ride will turn about 100 degrees to the right. So now that we have a location and a design, it's time to start gathering our materials. When you're building a feature in a bike park like Highland, you can just go to your local hardware store for the lumber. Heck, the hardware store might even drop it off for you. But I'm just a guy in the woods with a limited budget. Buying lumber at our local hardware store just isn't in the cards. And since time is money, we're going to use time instead. Just like we did when we built the drop, I'll be milling my own lumber from cedar logs found right here in the forest. The trick is to use an Alaskan mill. It's basically a guide that you can attach to your chainsaw that allows the saw to cut in a straight line. But since we're starting with a log with an uneven shape, we need to give the Alaskan mill a flat surface for the initial cut. A 2x8 will do the job just fine. Just screw it into the log, set the depth of the mill properly, and cut. We'll do 2 sections in a row here. Now that we have a flat surface, we can remove the 2x8, adjust the depth of the mill to 2.5 inches, and start cutting lumber. We need to cut 6-foot sections for the deck of our wall ride. The tree eventually became too wide for my chainsaw, so I cut it down the center and cut 2 boards with 2 passes. Now you may be wondering, why not just split the rungs like we did for the drop?
Oh, it's so satisfying.
Well, the surface of the wall ride needs to be really consistent, and splitting 6-foot rungs would give a really rough ride. These milled rungs will still have plenty of grip and will be less likely to impale you with slivers should you slide off the wall ride. It would have been nice to split the rungs though, since it's so fast. We spent 2 full days milling. But in the end, we had a pretty sizable pile of rungs with a few left over for future projects. Next, we needed to gather posts and beams. This time we're going to use cedar rounds instead of milled lumber.
Oh, that's not too heavy.
The previous day I chopped up some downed trees because today I knew I was going to have a trail crew come help haul them out. The local Mountain Bike Trail Association has hired some folks to do some maintenance on the trails out here, and they've come to help out on my trail for the day. So as Ryan and I haul the logs out of the bush, we deliver them to the rest of the trail crew who debark them to prevent rot. But with all the required wood on site, we need to dig some holes for the posts. But where exactly do we put them? Well, we can lay out the post locations using triangulation. So we'll use the first 2 posts as anchor points and measure everything else from them. We know that the first 2 posts are 5 feet 1 inch apart.
Hub to hub.
So we place 2 spikes 5 feet 1 inch apart in the real world. Now we have our anchor points. From here, we can use triangulation to locate the inside post at the exit. The distance from the inside entrance post is 23 feet 1 inch and 26 feet 6 inches from the outside. Using this information and 2 tape measures, Bobby can locate the post's location by placing a flag where the numbers overlap on his tape measures. Repeat this process for all the posts and you've got your locations mapped out in the real world. Now that we have the locations for our posts laid out, we can start digging holes. 16 of them. And we've got to dig them 2 feet deep to prevent frost issues in the winter. And with the holes dug, we can start putting posts in. Bobby has wrapped the bottoms to prevent rot. We needed to get them completely vertical though, and using a level won't work since the logs aren't square. So we'll use a plumb bob that I've fashioned out of a USB cable and a wrench, and since gravity always pulls perfectly down, I could align our posts to our plumb bob while Bobby braced them in place.
A little more? Yeah.
We then did the same 90 degrees from the first alignment.
Back this way? Yep.
And then we had ourselves a completely vertical post.
Wow, but
We then filled the holes and compacted as we went. We repeated the process for every post on into the next day. According to my design, each post has a different height, so we needed to cut each post to the right length. And since Bobby is a carpenter, we're going to use his high-end, expensive laser level. You could actually do what we're about to do with a string level for a couple bucks though. Basically, we want to mark each post at the same height as our outer post at the entrance. So Bobby has placed the sensor for his laser level on a piece of lumber. When the sensor beeps, it's at the same height as the laser, and the bottom of his stick is then at the same height as the post at the entrance. With all the posts marked at the same level, I can give him heights relative to that entrance post based off my computer design. In this case, the outside posts will progressively get higher, and the inside posts will progressively get lower. With all the heights marked, we can cut each post to size. Next up, we need to install our beams, and our carpenter, Bobby, has got all the skills required for the job. Since our beams are all different sizes as well, we need to reduce the height of the posts by the thickness of the beams. And for accuracy, Bobby has got his laser level out again. First, he measures the thickness of the beam. And after a bit of math, he can set the sensor to the height he needs to cut the post at. The laser level provides a level plane to work from. Bobby can then mark the post and cut it to size. He then uses a joint called a scarf joint to place the next beam on the same post. Now that we have the framework built, we can deck it with all those rungs that we meticulously milled earlier. It's a relatively easy job to do. The only slight hang-up is that since the wall ride turns, the rungs need to be wedge-shaped. So for every third or fourth rung, Bobby cuts a plank into a pair of wedges. Just rinse and repeat, and we've got a fully decked, nearly complete wall ride. And it actually looks like the design. Fancy that. To finish it off, Bobby came back later and replaced all that temporary bracing from the install with cedar offcuts from our milling operation. And speaking of which, Bobby's carpentry skills have come as a huge help. From experience, I know how all these features should work, and I can design them to be safe and fun. But Bobby has the skill and know-how to put these wooden features together, so I've got to thank him greatly for all the time he's donated to the project. But the wall ride is only one part of the equation here, and we have a lot more work to do. For one, we still need a lip to jump up onto it, a proper run-in before that, and a big safe run-out to land on. So you'll have to tune in next week to see all that, along with the first sends of the feature. So be sure to hit subscribe so it'll show up in your feed when the video drops. But until then, thanks for watching and stay gnarly.